let's hit it.
And welcome to Alzheimer Speaks Radio. I'm your host, Lori LeBay, and I'm so excited that you're joining us today. We are going to have a fascinating conversation as usual as we learn from people all around the world at all ages and stages of life. Stay tuned as we shift our dementia care from crisis to comfort.
All right, here we go. What you think about, you will bring about.
Well, hi, everyone. I'm Lori LeBay, your host at Alzheimer Speaks Radio, and I'm thrilled you can join us today. If you enjoyed our opening music, it's called Clarion Call by the Mark Arneson Band, and you can download that on any of your favorite music platforms. For those of you that are new to our show, Alzheimer Speaks is about sound information, not just sound bites. We like to talk to real people all around the world making a difference or having questions or who are able to give advice or insights as to what it's like to live with dementia. And today we're going to be talking about research. But before I introduce you to our guests, I do want to remind people this is a live show today. So if you have any questions regarding our topic, you can call in at 323-870-4602. That is 323-870-4602. Now, we did just recently update the Alzheimer Speaks website, and I highly encourage you to go there. We have one whole page just dedicated to a multitude of free resources that you can access. Our website is still the same. Check out AlzheimerSpeaks.com and let us know what you think. There you will find things like dementia chats and dementia in the arts, poetry, our YouTube channel, things about becoming dementia friendly and memory cafes, and of course our radio show, and so much more there. You'll also be able to find some public events that I'm doing, and I do a couple of support groups that you'll find there. One is a virtual, and that is the second and fourth Wednesday of each month at 1 o'clock Central Time, so that would be 2 o'clock Eastern Time. Anyone is welcome to join us. That is for people living with dementia and their care partners. Also, locally here in Minnesota, in the Shoreview Community Center, we do a Caregiver Connect program. That is the fourth Wednesday of the month, starting at 10 a.m. Central. And with that, you can bring your loved one for some respite care while the care partners sit and discuss different things. And let's see, I also want to give a shout out to Saltbox TV. If you haven't checked them out, Saltbox is really cool. It is a free online streaming service designed specifically for seniors. And I did mention some upcoming events. One that I forgot to mention isn't until September, but I still suggest you mark your calendar. Tuesday, September 20th at 6:30 to 7:30 Eastern Time, Artist Senior Living will be sponsoring a webinar I'm doing on the realities of dementia. We're going to be talking about family-friendly tools and tips that you can use. We're going to hear from the Adaptive Equipment and Caregiving Corner, and we'll be right back.
I love the footbar walker, and let me tell you why. It is the option for my toolbox that I've been waiting for. Let's be honest, there are some clients who, despite our best rehab efforts, just aren't able to return to performing a sit-to-stand transfer on their own. Now I can offer my caregivers an easier, safer option that doesn't involve hoisting their loved one up from a sitting position. I don't recommend this walker for all of my clients, but I do recommend this walker for those caregivers looking for an easier, safer option with transfers. I would also encourage other therapists to add this walker to their toolbox. It's kind of like having my own mobile parallel bars for the client to pull up on. Whether it's a family caregiver at home helping a loved one with Parkinson's or dementia, CNAs in a long-term care facility assisting their patients, or therapists adapting to client and caregiver-specific needs, we now have a very safe and effective option to offer in the footbar walker. Check this product out at thefootbarwalker.com. That's it for today from Adaptive Equipment and Caregiving Corner. Have a great day, and don't forget, if you can't do it, adapt it.
You're going to want to check out the Adaptive Equipment Caregiver Corner. They are absolutely fantastic. They have a ton of short videos highlighting different types of equipment, but also how to use it and how to install it, which is really fantastic. Now, today's show, we're going to be talking with a couple of people from Annovis Bio who is really advancing the solutions to reverse neurodegeneration by targeting multiple neurotoxin proteins. And, you know, research has been such a hot topic lately. There's been a lot of questions out there. And so I always love when we have researchers on to kind of talk about the nitty-gritty of what they're doing and what's going on with research as a whole, because with so many other things in our life, there's a lot of questions in terms of ethics and standards and where are we going and why are we heading in a certain direction and what do we really know about all the different types of dementias that are out there. So I want to welcome today, we've got two women with us who are just fantastic in their area. Maria Maccecchini is the founder, president, and CEO and executive board member of Annovis Bio. And she has actually devoted her life in a 30-year career to studying neurodegenerative diseases and their possible treatments, which I think is just absolutely fantastic. She actually founded Annovis back in 2008, and this was her second biotech company that she has started. So welcome, Maria. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, and thank you so much for having us. And yes, this is a very, very important area because at some point a lot of us will be affected. So thanks a lot for hosting this.
Yeah, well, you know, I don't know if you know this or not, but my mom lived with the disease for 30 years, and so I totally get it. And I see more and more people getting diagnosed younger, and they're going to be living long lives like my mom did with this disease, many of them. And I just think this is such an important discussion globally. There's so many people affected. This is not a disease of one, but it's a disease of families and society at large. So I'm going to go ahead and also introduce to our audience Cheng Fang, who is their Senior VP of Research and Development. And she is a real accomplished neuroscientist in and of herself, and she has a decade of experience with neurodegenerative diseases. And also she has a really broad spectrum of knowledge of hands-on experience as well. So welcome, Cheng. How are you today?
Hi, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having us here.
Well, good. I'm glad we've got both of you with us here. I'm still hearing a little bit of background noise, and I don't know if either of you are on a speakerphone or not, but if you can revert to just handheld, that would be wonderful. I'm going to start by asking each of you if you have been touched in your own family or circle of friends by dementia. Maria, I'm going to let you go first if you don't mind.
Well, yes, my mom had Alzheimer's, and a lot of people I talk to say, oh, my God, it's genetic. My mom got Alzheimer's when she was 88, and she died at 95. It's not genetic. So from that point of view, I'm not worried. The point of view I'm worried about is that if we make it to 90, 50% of us will be demented. This is not a disease that spares anybody who ages. By the time we are 100, 90% of us will be demented. That's reality. It has nothing to do with genes. I mean, 2-3% of Alzheimer's and Parkinson's is genetic, and the rest is old age. And there are so many things that contribute to it. And so, yes, on some hand, I don't really study this because of my mom or because I'm worried about myself. I study it because it is so endemic and we'll all suffer from it.
Agree. It's going to hit us sooner or later. How about you, Cheng? Have you been personally touched by dementia?
Yeah, of course. My grandfather died of Alzheimer's. And these days, it's almost, the moment I tell people I work in Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease, everyone has a story to tell. Either someone they love or someone, from friends and families. So, yeah, it impacts many, many people's lives.
Yes, it really, really does. Maria, I'm going to have you kind of give us a quick overview in simple language that our audience will understand about what your company is focusing on in terms of cure.
So a lot of people have heard of Aduhelm, the latest drug that Biogen was trying to market, and it's not being reimbursed because it works, but it doesn't work, and it's expensive, and it's too expensive. What pharma has done for the last 15 years is attack one or another neurotoxic protein, like A-beta. Everybody knows plaque is the cause for Alzheimer's. As it turns out, plaque is one cause for Alzheimer's. And so attacking just plaque has not yielded very good results. And what we looked at is how do nerve cells die? And yes, plaque is toxic, but tangles are toxic, Lewy bodies are toxic, other things are toxic. And so we looked at how do nerve cells die and can we prevent them from dying? And what we found is a drug that removes a lot more toxicity from the brain than just plaque. And it's the first thing it does, it improves the way the nerve cell functions. So if your nerve cell is sluggish because you got Parkinson's, you move slowly. With our drug, you'll move faster. If your brain is sluggish because your nerve cells move slower, with our drug, your nerve cells will move faster. You'll think faster. And we are very, very happy to say that our preliminary data actually show that this is really what the drug does. It speeds up cognition, it speeds up movement, and it leads to better cognition and better movement.
Well, that's pretty dang exciting. People have
yes, it is.
Yeah, that is really exciting. It's been interesting to kind of watch the research scenario and what has been targeted and why. Now, I'm assuming that you, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that you've taken a little bit different approach than others out there to come up with this. Where did the theory come from in terms of how you were going to approach things different from everyone else out there?
I'm not sure I understood your question. Sorry.
So there's a lot of different theories out there in terms of what causes, dementia and how it should be approached. Can you give us a little expanded background on why you decided to kind of take a different angle than many others out there?
Well, I don't think that there is a homogeneous, and I don't think there'll ever be a homogeneous approach because Alzheimer's is so many things. If you think of the genetic approach, it's kind of easy. You have a gene that does the wrong thing. End of the story. Mm-hmm. You fix the gene. But if you think that how many things can cause Alzheimer's? Traumatic brain injury can cause Alzheimer's. You have a car accident. You hit your head. It could 20, 30 years later lead to Alzheimer's or Parkinson's. You get exposed to mercury or lead. It could 20, 30 years later result in Alzheimer's. You eat too many carrots, you get Alzheimer's. You eat too few carrots, you will get Alzheimer's. It's just aging. During aging, not just in our brains, but in all our cells, we accumulate more and more toxins. That's why we get more cancer. That's why we get more neurodegeneration. Cells just get old and sick. And if you think of the fact that we all get wrinkles, well, it's aging. Well, the brain gets its problems. It gets wrinkles. It gets Alzheimer's. So there's never going to be a unified theory. But what is unified is that neurodegeneration means nerve cell death. If the nerve cells do not die, you will not have neurodegeneration, which means you're not going to have Alzheimer's, you're not going to have Parkinson's. Now, how you prevent these nerve cells from dying could happen in 20 different ways.
Mhm. Okay. Well, I'm glad you said that, because I have thought all along there isn't just one clear path to preventing or curing this disease, and it just seems like the longer we go on, the more that is kind of brought to the forefront in terms of possibilities. Now, Maria, can you tell us the name of the inhibitor that you're using right now to help speed up these cells?
Well, our drug is called puntanetab. It's not my choice. The United States agency that gives you generic names called it that way. And the reason, for each drug category, they find a novel name. And so for us, they found puntanetab.
Okay.
It's one drug that works in all these diseases because it protects nerve cells from dying.
Okay, great. Now, Cheng, I'd like to ask you about puntanetab, and I did not know that you guys didn't pick out your own names, so that's kind of interesting in and of itself. You're just kind of left in the wings there with that, so that clarifies a lot for me, just in and of itself, knowing that. Do you want to give us a little background in terms of how it works, maybe a little bit more specifically what you're targeting within the brain and the body?
Yeah, absolutely. Like Maria already pointed out, in most of the neurodegenerative diseases, even though for Alzheimer's we were focusing on A beta plaques, neurofilament tangles, and for Parkinson's disease we were focusing on Lewy bodies. So these were different culprit proteins, right? APP caused A beta amyloid, and tau caused neurofilament tangles, and alpha-synuclein caused those Lewy bodies in Parkinson's disease. However, if you look at all those brains, no matter your Alzheimer's patients, Parkinson's patients, all these culprit proteins exist. It just previously was overlooked because you can only find things you're looking for, right, even though those proteins were there. So now it's more and more acceptable. It's actually over 50% of the Alzheimer patient's brain. You'll find alpha-synuclein, the culprit protein for Parkinson's disease. And in 30% of the Alzheimer patient's brain, you'll find a TDP-43, which is for Lou Gehrig's disease. So all these neurotoxic proteins, they have very similar things. When they overexpress, they aggregate and become toxic. So our compound, puntanetab, reduce all these neurotoxic proteins at the same time.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. I know when they did the autopsy of my mom's brain, it was significantly shrunk, needless to say, and greatly atrophied. But they said, it was primarily Alzheimer's, but that she did have some Parkinson's and Lewy body, according to their findings. And, those two had never really been mentioned before regarding my mother's disease through the whole process until that autopsy. And, looking back, they asked me, well, what do you think? And I said, well, it was hard because she did stiffen up a little bit, but we kind of thought it was more old age. And, she ended up in a wheelchair just from mobility, but we didn't really think that it was necessarily Parkinson's. Nobody went down that road. We just thought it was, part of the disease process per se of aging in confusion with the Alzheimer's, and so I find that really fascinating that you're saying these other things are there, and there's a lot of similarities and overlaps, and it makes sense to what degree they are in terms of what we're going to see as far as symptoms and stuff go with people. So, and we're seeing that so much too, even as people progress with the disease. All of a sudden we're hearing more about people having more than one type of dementia, which those who aren't familiar with dementia go, how can that be? And it's like, you talk to the community and it's pretty common, or it's changed. The diagnosis itself has changed as symptoms increase with that. Are there, go ahead, was there something else you wanted to add?
No, I think you're absolutely spot on. I think we are understanding more and more about these diseases, because if you ask, 100 years ago, people just think that's senile or people go crazy, but there's so much nuance and so much biology behind it.
Mhm. Yep. Yeah.
And that is, but that is so important, because we thought that Alzheimer's was a disease and Parkinson's a disease. And with better diagnostic tools, we are finding that there are so many mixed pathologies. Cannot treat a mixed pathology with one single drug. So, or with a drug that is very specific for one pathology. So that's really where our drug comes in, because it treats the later piece. It treats the death of the nerve cell. It prevents the nerve cell from dying, independent which pathology caused it.
Mm-hmm.
And I really think that all the novel diagnostics have shown us that there is no clean Alzheimer's.
Yeah, I would really tend to agree with that. I think a lot of people with dementia would tend to agree with that as well, from those that I've talked to all around the world. And one of the things that I find really interesting that they say as it relates to their symptoms, and they say, we don't care if you're using a scale of 1 to 3 or 1 to 7, when it comes to symptoms. But they say our symptoms are like emotions. You don't stick in one gear all day long. And most of them feel like they flow, that they're very fluid all day long, going through many, many symptoms. But so many of them tell me, but I'm not going to tell my spouse that, because I don't want them to think I'm stuck there. But, and I thought the analogy of using emotions, you can get up and be in a good mood, but you can get in your car and someone cuts you off, and that changes, and you get a little snappy or a little upset. And that's normal life. But I think when it comes to chronic illnesses, we want this magic bullet. We want it fixed. We want it black and white, and we don't want to have to understand or deal with the middle. And, to me, the middle is 99% of the disease process. And
yes.
And I think it's just so very important. Now, Maria, are there certain types of proteins specifically that you're targeting with this drug?
Well, yes. Mostly Alzheimer's is associated with A-beta, chronic traumatic encephalopathy with tau or tangles. I think Cheng already mentioned Lewy bodies and alpha-synuclein with Parkinson's. But in mixed pathologies, you find them all in the same person. And as I said, there are very, very few clean pathologies. And our drug actually attacks them all. It attacks A-beta, tau, alpha-synuclein. It attacks all the neurotoxic aggregating proteins that cause nerve cell death.
Wow. That's just really, really exciting news. Now, where exactly are you with this drug, Cheng? If you can tell us, are you still in trials at this point, or is this something that is going through the process of getting approved, or is it approved? I'm sure our listeners are very interested in knowing that.
Yeah, we're at a very exciting stage. So we just kicked off our phase 3, which is the latest stage of trial in Parkinson's disease in 7 different countries. So this week, we actually have our first 3 patients being screened to be treated for Parkinson's disease. So our plan is in October, we'll kick off phase 2-3 in Alzheimer's disease.
Okay.
So stay tuned. It's really exciting. the phase 3 data is the data we will use to go to the FDA to request for the new drug approval.
Okay. Now, was there a reason? Because I know people are always kind of in competition between drugs and their purposing behind them. When it sounds like Parkinson's is a little bit ahead of the Alzheimer's patients in terms of trials here. Was there a reason for that? Were you seeing better effects with that group, or did you think it was going to be easier? I know sometimes companies really struggle with getting people into trials. What's the rationale when you are looking at prioritizing, what happens? And Maria, I'll throw that one back to you.
Well, we don't really think we are going to have a problem recruiting patients, at least not in Parkinson's, because in our phase 2 study, the 50 Parkinson's patients that were enrolled and were on drug all said that they felt faster. They could write faster. And they told all their friends. Right now, we have almost 200 patients that have asked us if they can participate. So for Parkinson's, I don't see any problem. For Alzheimer's, a little harder. Alzheimer patients are usually older. They have more comorbidities. They're harder to get to. They're not that active. They stopped fighting, a lot of them. Not all of them. But Parkinson's are more in their 70s. They are still all fighting. They want to contribute. Alzheimer's, you probably have to go more through the caregiver.
Yep. Yeah, and that to me makes total sense. Plus, on top of all the issues that have come up just in the whole pharma process with Alzheimer's lately, the controversies from the Biogen thing to now the University of Minnesota, where I'm from. I mean, people are really sitting back and going, what the heck's going on here? And trust levels aren't as high as what they used to be. And
that's also why I think that we will have to go more through the caregiver. I doubt that an Alzheimer, very early Alzheimer patients can understand it. But after that, it's going to be tough for them. See, our drug is so different from Aduhelm that, it's not an infusion. It's a once-a-day daily pill. It doesn't have ARIA. It doesn't do PET scans. It doesn't do MRI. It doesn't do anything. We give people one pill a day. That's it. That makes people comfortable.
Yeah.
Okay? That's number one. We don't stick them. We don't prod them. We don't stick them in machines. That makes them comfortable. And the other thing, which unfortunately I can't say for Alzheimer's, I told you, in Parkinson's patients just kind of recruited themselves because they told other patients the stuff works. In Alzheimer's, the data is the same. It works in Alzheimer's in our hands also. But if you think logically, if you can write 26% better, you feel that, you see that, you know I wrote better. If you can think 36% better, that's a hard thing to judge. How do I think 26% better? I can measure it because I got a scale. But for the person doing it, I'm not sure they see the difference in their thinking. They might see 100%, but 26% is tough. So there, I think we need to educate the caregivers.
Okay. Well, that makes a lot of sense. And I think you're right. When people can see and feel that difference, it's huge. And when you are getting that word of mouth advertising from people that are saying, hey, this has really helped me, that, to me, that is what people are really looking for. They're getting, I think, more and more skeptical of being sold and pitched, and they want to hear from real voices and real people with real experiences before they start jumping through the hoops to be part of a trial. And, with Alzheimer's, like you said, I've heard so many people go, we started the process And 4 months later, we find out we're not approved or we don't meet this criteria, and they just have gotten disappointed, through the process, or they've progressed. I mean, that can happen too, where they did meet the criteria, but then by the time things really got started, they had progressed and or something else health-wise came up that booted them out of the study, and people get so invested in the whole process that it can really be difficult there. Now, you have a product that helps. I think it's called Exenol, which helps with cognition in Alzheimer's patients. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how that's related to dementia in Alzheimer's patients?
Cheng, you want to take that?
Our axonal transport, is that what you're talking about?
Yep.
Yes. So our neurons actually have a neuronal cell body, which is basically the command center. But then there has a long arm, which you have the information flow. So they can actually, as neuron interaction, they can commute with each other. They can, give the information out. So that long arm is called axon. So because it's so long, actually, if you think about the peripheral nerve, some of the peripheral nerve axons can be as long as 1 meter long. So the proteins are actively transporting there, so to communicate with each other. Extremely important. What we found, and it's not just us, actually there are mountains of literature out there to show you that all these neurotoxic proteins would inhibit the axonal transport way before the neuronal die. So your information communication becomes slower. And then through years, it becomes detrimental, and the axons would die back. So then the cell body would eventually wither and die. So what our drug does is to help axonal transport, and it helps the synaptic, which is your information restored, the synaptic plasticity, synaptic functions, and then prevent the axons from dying, and so helping the neurons to preserve its function. So that's how our drug works, and also that's also how we can see a result in 1 month. So usually, in 1 month you can see, like, even the patient's brain, you wouldn't see much of the atrophy. So the MRI results that you see in your mother after she passed away, that's years and years of neuronal loss. But within 1 month, the results we see is mostly because we actually helped your existing neurons in your brain just to communicate better. So that's how we believe it works in the short term. And in the long term, we can help you to preserve the neurons that you have, not only help them to better their functions, but also help them prevent them from dying. So in that way, we think it all would have long-term effects as well.
Okay, wonderful. And Maria, just to let you know, I had put you on mute because I was getting some echoing. I was trying to figure out where that was coming from. But I appreciate you sharing that very much. Now, I wanted to ask Maria, because I believe you guys are both at the Alzheimer's Association International Conference right now, which some people might hear it being referred to as AAIC. And Maria, now you participated in a panel that, I'll just have you tell us what your panel was about. That'll be the easiest way than me trying to summarize it and have you go into details.
I'm sorry, you got lost twice while you spoke. What would you like me to say about AIC? I assume you edited this.
Yep. You were on a panel, and I was wondering if you could tell us what you were talking about with the panel and what you heard from others as well.
Yeah, this was a very interesting panel because I think it's the first time AIC does a 75-minute panel on novel approaches. most approaches here have been amyloid. So this has been very interesting because none of us was an amyloid company, and because we really have been swimming against the general opinions for 10 years, and finally the general opinions is softening because of Aduhelm. I mean, Aduhelm isn't that great, and maybe the others aren't that great either. They have all failed so far. So the panel was very interesting also because it was moderated by Jeff Cummings, who is kind of the ultimate KOL for Alzheimer's disease, and he consults for most pharma companies. So the fact that he actually decided to moderate a panel on totally different aspects was very interesting. We had so many people. I could not believe that so many people got up at 8 o'clock to listen to us. The room was almost full, which, given that this is the last day of the meeting, really means people were hungry to see something else. And I think the 4 approaches are all totally different. None of us is doing the same thing. But interestingly enough, all of us end up protect nerve cells from dying. And remember I told you neurodegeneration means nerve cell death? If you don't die, there is no neurodegenerative disease.
Well, I am glad that panel took place, too, because I do think everyone is hungry for new approaches and new ways to look at things. And I think there has been, controversy for years over the path that we have spent so much money to go down, kind of one road. And, like you, I mean, I hear and see and talk to people all over doing different things, that are also finding some results. And, people, I think, bottom line, if you're living with this or if you have a loved one, you don't really care what path it is. You want results. And you can't measure, well, this has to give us results just because we haven't had a cure in 20 years. I think the general public's not buying that. That's not good enough, and it has to be, it has to be affordable and not so invasive, hopefully, which it sounds like yours really is, versus some of the others that have come up. And, those are all additional hurdles that have to be gotten through, not only from trials, but then from pricing on the market. And I mean, it's a complicated thing that you're all doing. But so many people are really saying, I just want my quality of life back. What can you do to give me that back? And like you said, if somebody can write or, comprehend at a greater percentage or detail of what they were doing, that's massively huge. And for somebody to be looking at, and maybe I'm making this too simple, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but for somebody to say, well, it cleared up this in the brain, but if people aren't seeing a physical change within themselves, they don't really care, because they want that quality of life back. They want, that ability. Would you say that that's a fair synopsis of what you're hearing and seeing?
That's a very, very fair statement. And there is more to that, okay? I don't think pharma terribly likes me because I think drugs should be affordable. If you have a drug that affects 90% of people at 90, maybe it should be very affordable. And if you have an infusion that you have to do once a month and all this stuff, it's not going to be. Whereas there's 4 companies that talk today. 3 of us have a pill, and 1 of us has a sub-Q injection. Now that makes it affordable. A pill is going to, even if it's an expensive pill, it's not going to be that much. And you really want to give patients something they can use. Because if you have to drag them into the hospital once a month to do tests, to do this, to do that, you don't really improve their quality of life. In the end, you want people, and also, I'm really not for living longer. I'm for living better as long as you live. We're going to die. Okay, this is just the way life is. You can't replace every organ because there's always going to be another one that fails. But if we can die with dignity, because we can go to the bathroom, we can recognize our grandchildren, we can feed ourselves and clothe ourselves. That's all we really want.
I'm with you totally there. I am totally with you. And granted, there are a few people that want to live at all costs and don't really.
That's fine.
And that's their choice. But I also think, like with some of these others, with all of the testing that has to go on, and not only is it the cost, but some people don't have the transportation. Some people just don't have the strength or the ability, or knowing how difficult that is sometimes to get their loved one. You know, they got to be in the right mood, and things kind of got to all go smooth that day, or those types of things can add a lot of stress. And yet we all know stress is not good for any of these diseases and just increases symptoms usually. And I find it kind of ironic that isn't always part of the equation in terms of what I'm seeing from an outsider looking in. And I'm, like I said, I'm not a researcher. I'm not a doctor. I have no medical background. I'm just saying, from a daughter with a mom, and from as a woman who's talked to many people around the world, people are looking really for, and this might sound naive, simple answers, which I know this is a really complicated thing. But I know I have also found with dementia that a lot of things have been made complicated to make us look like we need certain things from certain organizations when we don't necessarily need them, on a lot of different levels. And, and an example of that is just the social support, that is out there for people. We've gotten really creative just even in the last 5 years in terms of how people look at this disease and how quality of life can be improved through those types of things. And, when you're pulling people into hospitals and clinics for research, and we still have COVID being really active, that's another stressor and complication in terms of can this be done, and is this safe for these individuals that are already compromised. So I'm just really excited to hear the work that you're doing and the progress that you're seeing from the evidence so far. So please keep me posted on your phase 3 trial with Parkinson's disease, and as well as your upcoming trials for Alzheimer's as well. I'd love to have you back and hear more as things progress. Cheng, is there anything that you would like to add that we didn't cover that you feel is important?
No, I think we covered a good ground. So, yeah, I'm excited as well. So I hope we can come back soon to give you more good news.
Yeah. Do you have an idea of how long your phase 3 trial will take?
Well, in Parkinson's, we are almost sure. The FDA told us to 2 6-month studies, one in early, one in advanced, and then you can file your NDA.
Okay.
So we feel that's going to be 24, and then 1 or 2 years for approval. So by 25, Parkinson's should be on the market, 25, 26. Alzheimer's, we are not 100% sure because, as Cheng told you, we are doing a phase 2/3. We have to do a dose study first. That will take until next year. And then we'll ask the FDA for the same clarification as I just gave you for Parkinson's.
Sure.
Possible we can do 2 short studies, 2 long studies. That will decide next year. But by 25, Parkinson's, and I would say Alzheimer's 1-2 years longer.
Okay. And is there a good contact if people want to partake in the Parkinson's study or the Alzheimer's study, or is Parkinson's, do you feel like that's full and you're raring to go with what you've got lined up so far? What's the process?
Yes. So we have a website, and there is a patient page. they
Mhm.
can put their name in there. It's going to come to us, and we have
Okay.
a list. So we do email the volunteers routinely when each step is reached. The other
Okay.
option is to go on clinicaltrials.gov.
Mhm.
There right now the study is listed as non-recruiting. Next week it'll be listed as recruiting. And then as sites go on, they will be added to clinicaltrials.gov.
Okay. Okay. Wonderful. So to put their name on the list, would that be going to your company website then?
Yes, AnnovisBio.com, and there is a patient site.
Okay. And let's see, I'm just looking at, because I'm looking at the top here, and it's got home, about us, science, neurodegenerative, investigators contact, and then there's a tab here that says our pipeline in progress. Is that where they would sign up? I'm not seeing something
Wow.
specific.
Otherwise, just go to contact us.
Contact us? Okay. Okay, sounds good. Well, that is wonderful to know. I really appreciate you both taking the time to be with us today. And again, I look forward to your progress. It's nice to hear some good news about some trials and where things are at. And that's very, very exciting. So thank you for taking the time out of your conference day to be with us today. Appreciate it very much.
Well, thank you so much for having us, and thanks for doing this for the patients.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
thank you.
we're all better together, and I figure any way we can help raise the voice of what's going on and help people connect the dots. That's our goal here at Alzheimer Speaks, and will continue to be. So again, thank you so much, ladies. Appreciate your time today. For our listeners, I would suggest that you go to their website, which is ANNOVISBIO.com. And again, just go to contact us. They'll get you information regarding those trials. Again, they are going to be starting up really soon here for the Parkinson's phase 3 trial, and then for the 2-3 trial in Alzheimer's will be coming up as well. But you want to get into the pipeline of knowledge and get on the list if that's of interest to you. We are going to wrap up with hearing from the ALZ authors. And again, thank you so much for your time. I hope you like, click, and share. And again, don't forget to go visit us at alzheimerspeaks.com or check out Dementia Map, which is our global resource directory. If you are not part of that, we'd love to have you added to that. And if you are searching, it's free. We're not going to ask you for any contact information. We just want you to feel comfortable. You can find wonderful events on there as well as blog articles and terms. So have a blessed week, everyone. Talk soon. Bye now.
Hello, podcast listener. If you're caring for a loved one with Alzheimer's or dementia, you'll want to check out ALZ Authors, the global community of authors writing about Alzheimer's and dementia from personal experience. We have the most comprehensive collection of hundreds of carefully vetted books and blogs covering all types of dementia and caring situations. Our authors' personal stories and painfully learned lessons can help you on your own journey. We also offer a fabulous podcast called Untangling Alzheimer's and Dementia, which you can find on any of your podcast platforms. Remember, you are not alone. One can sing a lonely song, but we chose to form a choir and create harmony. Find us at alzauthors.com.
Hi, everyone. This is Meredith from the Senior Fitness with Meredith podcast, where I discuss all things for seniors. From fitness, your health and wellness journeys, how to be all over strong and beyond. I also have my mini podcast called Motivation with Meredith. It's a great, quick motivational pick-me-up for your days. Join me, listen now, search for Senior Fitness with Meredith on your favorite podcast platform.